Good day, it's Constantine. In this series of videos with the SE-02, we will be looking at creating some patches. Now, we will go over many different types. Now, for this video, we are going to create a rhythm section. So kick, snare, and hi-hats. Now, for the first kick, believe it or not, we will not use the oscillators at all. So I'm going to completely turn them off. Now, as you may have seen in my tutorials, there is a way to create a sine wave in this synth using the resonance, and that is what I want, a sine wave. So I'll crack the resonance all the way up. And the way I can control its pitch is by using the filter. But now if key tracking is on, I can play in equal temperament. But I don't want that, so I'll take it off. And right now, every note will be the same. Okay, now let's take the filter down a bit more and adjust the filter envelope and the contour. Take the sustain down a bit. It sounds like a sci-fi effect, so tone down the decay. Take the filter down a bit more. Now, it lacks a bit of meat, and that is easily fixable. All you need to do is just play around with the feedback and adjust to taste. And then you can, of course, you can fine tune it using the contour and the decay. About there. It's just one more thing, the patches will never be the same. Some happy accidents will happen. So if you find something really good, save it to your presets. Now let's have a look at creating a kick using the oscillators. I'm going to use all three. I want to blend a square wave. Let's go for a narrow pulse wave for a slightly tighter sound. And I'm going to start, let's go with 32 feet for all the oscillators. And so for the second one, I'm going to blend in a square wave as well. Actually, I'm going to leave it on sawtooth and put a triangle wave on the third one and then use the modulation. So all the way to the right. Of course, we need to take the filter down now. Let's take the sustains down as well. Take the contour up a bit. And use the feedback to add some beef. Maybe some noise. Use the decay, which is the release now, and take down to the point where it doesn't sound like a bass, it's just a percussive sound. About there. So we have looked at how to make a kick without the oscillators, only with the resonance, and then only with the oscillators. Now let's try a kick with neither. So I'm going to take down both the oscillators and the resonance. So nothing plays back. And now we're going to use the feedback, the noise engine, and the contour. So let's take the feedback and noise up. And I'm going to take the filter down, of course. Just going to take down all the way, crank the contour all the way up. And I don't want sustain. That's fine. I use the release of the filter envelope to adjust it. So it's not much. If it has a bit of oomph, that's a professional term by the way, just take the contour down a bit. And just play with these two knobs here. Now it's tighter if I want more oomph. Of course, you can take some feedback off. Adjust to taste. Let's take a look at the snare pads now. Now, in case you have listened to my track Serendipity, this is the pads I have used. Actually, for all the rhythm section, these are the pads I've used. But for the snare, it's this one. And I have 3 different sounds in that track. So I use the sound we're about to create, but I have done a lot of work in post to change it for the different sections of the track. So it's an easy sound to manipulate in case you want different sounding snares. Now, let's get into it. Now, as you can guess, the main component will be noise to imitate the snares of the snare drum. So let's take the oscillators down, crank up the noise. Now, as with all the kicks, the feedback can be used to beef up the sound. But when I blend it in, it will produce a note. I don't want that. So what we'll do is to raise the resonance all the way up, and then we'll get rid of the note and it will be beefier. Now I can use the sustain of the amp envelope and the decay to shape the transient. Take the release down as well. Take the sustain down to the point where you don't hear the noise. About there. And then adjust to taste. Now for the second snare, we will use the same pads we have created, but we will take the resonance down. That will produce a glitchy kind of snare that is super nice in a weird experimental stuff. Now I will quickly transition to the hi-hat pads because before I show you the next snare, because I want to use the same pads. And I'll bring the emphasis back up again and then simply take the decay down a bit. And that's it for the hi-hat. The next snare pads is similar, but it's a heavier sound. It's based on the first snare pads we have created, but we'll filter it and use less feedback. So, noise engine all the way up. Actually, oscillators down again. Noise all the way up. A bit of feedback. Let's filter it. And take the sustain all the way down for both envelopes. A bit of contour. something like that. Let's try some toms. I'm going to use just the third oscillator because I want to turn the keyboard function off. Okay, so now this works with every waveform, but it changes the sound just a tiny bit. But let's go with a reverse sawtooth and 16 feet for this one. Now let's use some feedback and noise. Let's just filter that. Okay, now let's take the amp sustain all the way down. Take the filter sustain down a bit as well. Some contour. Now I'm thinking in post, maybe I can just do like an 80s kind of tom sound with some gate reverb. Now let's try a slightly more electronic tom. Similar to the previous parts, I will use the third oscillator with the keyboard tracking option off, but I'll take the feedback down, all the way down, and the noise all the way up. Let's also take this resonance down and the filter all the way down. And let's take the contour all the way up. For the amp filter, I don't want any attack, no decay, and full sustain. And then for the filter envelope, no attack, some decay, and almost no sustain. I'll just play with the decay to find the sweet spot for the tom. I just took the oscillator down 32 feet. Let me show you what you can do in post with the sounds we have created. Let's have a listen to what I have done only with the sounds from the patches I have created for this video. Now normally, let's actually open this one up. Normally I would finish the video here, but some of you may think that I have used other samples to create some parts of the beat, like let's say, yeah, like that cowbell here. But everything is 100%, only the sounds from the video. Let's have a look at everything to show you my post work and what you can actually achieve just with the SE-02. First of all, that down here is the beat without any effects. It is an exact copy of what you just heard, but without any plugins or any sound design. So let's have a listen to how it sounded before. Almost sounds like 8-bit, and then just that became that. In any case, let's take it from the top. The first kick, I'm usually layering stuff, so that's the kick. Let's see how it sounds like without the effects. It's the first part we've created, and then I use the RC20. I love this plugin to add some space, bit crusher, and distortion compression. It sounds like it has some belts on it as well, which I really like in context. And here's the second one. It's the second kick we have created, and I again use the RC20. And together. And then the snares. I actually have 3 snares here, my main one and some just added layers. So here's, let's put this one on. So here's the other snare. And with the effect, the exact same snare. But just one, because it's always, when something's monophonic, because everything's monophonic on that synth, I want to play with the stereo field a bit, so I added this panning. It just goes from left to right, and if, as you can see, it's a bit, I just put a bit behind the, after the snares. So there's that, and here is the main snare. And the main snare, actually, after lots of experimentation, just happened, I had this happy accident with the vocoder. So that's the main sound. It's clearly, you know, just a noise engine. So I want this to be lower in pitch. Of course, I added the infamous RC20 here again as well. Just a distortion a bit crusher. And here's how good the vocoder sounds on the drum beat. So here's without. Well, and as you can hear, there's a gated reverb as well on that one. So in the mix. And then the cowbell, which is, it's also the SE-02, believe it or not. So, and the whole thing happens just from the phaser. So here's without. Let's make the sounds a bit larger, so the MIDI area. So here's the sound. It's just a heavy snare. So when you make this one really short and then you put a phaser on, it sounds like a cowbell. That's it. And then just some EQ to bring it out a bit more. And then that sound is exactly the same sound, but with an added phaser after that. So here's without, with the phaser. But now it sounds like that because the notes are a bit longer. And then the EQ. So that's the exact same parts. But when you add another phaser and play with the LFO a bit, you get that effect. And that's it. And then some sound design snare. And lastly, not lastly, actually the hi-hats. Let's have a listen. Nothing crazy. And another layer which is slightly more electronic. And then the toms. Let's start from the beginning. That's actually one of the sounds that's quite close to the original sound. So here's without the effect. And here's with the effect. And the other tom. Oh, and since I'm using simpler, that means the pitch will change every time I, put it on another note. So this note's up here. It kind of sounds to me like it's the rim of the drum when they play all together. So that's without. And then when you put these notes in, it sounds like the drumstick is hitting the rims of the drum as well. And I Kinda like that. And lastly, I really want to use that glitzy snare we have created, so I include it at the beginning, which is essentially just that, with a bit of reverb. And the toms and the snare, they all have gate reverb. So, and that's it. Now that's what you can create in post with just the SE-02. And that would be it for the first video. Thank you for watching.